When I walked back from my business trip and pushed open the heavy mahogany door to the CEO's office, I found a stranger with his feet propped up on my solid mahogany executive desk, twisting a shard of broken 12th century royal porcelain between his fingers. The 17th century classical landscape painting on the wall was ripped clean in half. My handcrafted stoneware teapot lay shattered into dust on the carpet. He flicked a lazy glance my way. "Get the hell out. Vivian gave this office to me." My assistant stood trembling by the door. "Mr. Thorne," Miss Drake said. "She's given your office to him." The man laughed, leaning forward to jab a finger straight at my nose. "You hear that? What Vivian says goes." Crack. I snapped his finger clean in two. I grabbed the porcelain vase off the desk, lifted it, and slammed it straight into his skull. Bang. Blood gushed down his face in an instant. When Vivian Drake came screaming into the room, I backhanded her so hard she crumpled to the floor. "You're both fired." My 2-week business trip landed me back in the city at 3 in the afternoon. I rode the elevator to the top floor of Thorne Tower, my leather shoes making no sound on the plush carpet. The heavy redwood door to the CEO's office was shut tight. I wrapped my hand around the handle, pushed it open, and froze. 2 scuffed dress boots were planted on my solid mahogany desk, and a stranger was slouched in my leather chair, holding a shard of broken porcelain up to the light. It was the 12th century royal porcelain shard I'd won at auction just last month. Now it was broken. He heard the door click shut and turned his head. Young, soft-featured, hair slicked back with so much product it glinted under the lights. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me. "Who the hell are you? Get out." "Vivian gave this office to me." I said nothing. My gaze slid past his face, sweeping across the room. The 17th century classical landscape painting I'd collected hung torn in two on the floor. Half the shelves of my glass curio display shelf were empty. My stoneware teapot was smashed into shards across the carpet. My marble paperweight was cracked. My pen holder was tipped over. My fountain pen was snapped clean in half. It looked like the room had been looted. "Owen," I said, my voice flat. My assistant Owen Reed came scrambling in from the hallway, his face sheet white. "Mr. Thorne, you back early. Who is he?" I nodded at the man in my chair. Sweat beaded on Owen's forehead. He's the new assistant Miss Drake hired a few days ago. Leo Bennett," she said. "She said he could use this office for now." Leo laughed, dropping his feet off the desk and standing up to face me. He was half a head shorter than me, reeking of cheap cologne strong enough to make my head spin. "You hear that?" He lifted a hand, his index finger hovering an inch from my nose. "What Vivian says goes. This office is mine now. You and all your garbage." He jerked his chin at the broken porcelain and torn painting on the floor. "Pack it up and get lost. Stop wasting my time." His finger was still waving in front of my face. I reached up, closed my hand around it, and squeezed. Leo blinked. "What the foo?" He never finished the sentence. I twisted my wrist hard, bending his finger backward with brutal force. Crack. The sound was sharp and clean. His face went blank for a full second. Then his eyes blew wide and his mouth dropped open. "Ah!" The scream was raw, ragged, tearing out of his throat. He crumpled toward the floor, but I kept my grip on his finger, leaving him half kneeling, half hanging. His face twisted with agony. Cold sweat broke out across his forehead instantly. My hand. I let go. He collapsed to the floor, clutching his right hand, his whole body shaking with pain, snot and tears streaming down his face. I turned and walked back to the desk. The 19th century hand-painted porcelain vase was still sitting on the corner, intact. I picked it up, hefted it in my hand. Heavy, solid. I walked back to where Leo lay cowering. He looked up at me, eyes wide with terror. You can't do this. Vivian won't let you get away with." I didn't wait for him to finish. I lifted the vase and brought it crashing down hard on his skull. Bang! The vase shattered on impact. Blood burst from his forehead, running down over his eyebrows, his eyes, his jaw, dripping dark red into the carpet. Leo went completely rigid, staring straight ahead like he'd been stunned. He lifted a shaky hand to his forehead, touched the blood. 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 His voice trembled. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed backward, hitting the floor hard and going still. Only the faint rise and fall of his chest proved he was still breathing. High heels clicked down the hallway. Fast and frantic. Vivian burst through the door. She was wearing a tailored Chanel suit. Her hair perfectly styled. Her makeup flawless. She saw me first and froze for half a second. Ethan. You're back. Why didn't you tell me? Her words died in her throat. She saw Leo on the floor. She saw the blood covering his face. Ah. A shrill, ear-splitting scream. Leo. Leo. What did he do to you? She lunged toward him. Then froze. Her hands hovering in the air like she was too scared to touch him. Then she looked up at me. Her eyes blazing red with rage. Ethan Thorne. What did you do? She stormed toward me, raising her hand to slap me across the face. I caught her wrist mid-swing. She thrashed in my grip. Let go of me. You hurt my Leo. You're going to pay for this. I didn't let go. I lifted my other hand and backhanded her across the face as hard as I could. Smack. The sound echoed through the office. She stumbled sideways, slamming into the edge of the desk. A handful of her cosmetics spilled off the surface, shattering on the floor. She pressed a hand to her cheek. Stunned. She looked up at me, disbelieving. You hit me. I said nothing. I stepped forward, lifted my boot, and kicked her hard in the stomach. She made a guttural, gasping sound, doubling over and dropping to her knees, her face turning bright red as she dry heaved. I bent down, fisted my hand in her hair, and hauled her up off the floor. She screamed, kicking and flailing. Ethan. You're insane. Let go of me. My father will ruin you for this. I ignored her. I dragged her by the hair over to the polished marble floor and forced her face down toward the glossy stone. Then I slammed her forehead into it. Thud. A dull, heavy sound. Her scream cut off mid-shriek. Thud. Second time. Thud. Third time. Every hit was full force. The marble rang with the impact. At first she was still cursing. You bastard, I'll kill you. Then it turned to sobbing. Stop, it hurts, Ethan. Please. It hurts. By the third hit, all that was left was broken, slurred begging. Stop. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stopped. I let go of her hair. She collapsed to the floor. Her forehead swollen purple and blue, oozing thin streaks of blood. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup was running. Tears and snot streaked all over her face. 2 buttons on her blouse had popped open. Her suit was stained and crumpled. She looked like a kicked dog. She curled up on the floor, hugging her head, shaking all over, sniffling quietly. I'm sorry. Ethan. Please stop. I glanced over at Leo, still passed out in a pool of his own blood. He'd woken up now, but he didn't dare move. Just stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. I looked back at Vivian. Both of you, I said, my voice cold and steady. You're fired. Get out of my company. Now. Vivian's head snapped up. Ethan. You can't. Security. I cut her off, raising my voice. 4 guards who'd been waiting outside the door burst in immediately. Mr. Thorne. I pointed at the 2 bodies on the floor. Throw this trash out. Yes. Sir. 2 guards hauled Leo to his feet. He went limp like a rag doll, blood dripping onto the carpet as they dragged him out. The other 2 grabbed Vivian's arms. She thrashed wildly. Don't touch me. How dare you lay hands on me? I'm Vivian Drake. I'm Ethan's fiancée. The guards glanced at me. I gave a short nod. They didn't hesitate. They clamped down on her arms and dragged her toward the door. Ethan Thorne. You'll regret this. My father will destroy you. Ethan. Her voice faded down the hallway, vanishing as the elevator doors slid shut. The office went quiet. All that was left was the mess, and the dark stain of blood on the carpet. Owen stood frozen in the doorway, his face deathly pale, too scared to breathe too loud. Mr. Thorne. I held up a hand to cut him off. Call housekeeping. Have this room cleaned up. Yes. Sir. He bowed his head and backed out of the office. I walked over to the window, pulled out my phone, and took photo after photo of the damage, the shattered porcelain, the torn painting, the broken decor. When I was done, I opened my contacts, found Harrison Drake's name, and sent every single photo to him, along with a text. Your daughter destroyed my property and let her lover insult me to my face. Full itemized list attached. You will pay 3 times the appraised value as compensation. If I don't see the money in 3 days, I'm going to the police. Felony vandalism. Damages in the high 7 figures. That's 10 years minimum for her and her little boyfriend. I hit send. My phone rang seconds later. It was Harrison. I declined the call. He called again. I declined again. I put the phone on silent and dropped it on the desk, ignoring it. 10 minutes later, I picked it back up. 17 missed calls. All from Harrison. A dozen unread texts. Ethan. Pick up. Let's talk about this properly. Vivian was out of line. I apologize on her behalf. Compensation is fine. 3 times is fine. The money will be in your account tomorrow. Think of the years our families have worked together. I didn't finish reading. I deleted all the messages. Right as I cleared the inbox. The phone rang again. Still him. I answered. Ethan. Thank God you picked up. Harrison's voice was tight. Frantic. Layered with forced deference. Vivian's been spoiled rotten. I know that. I'm so sorry for what she did. I'll pay for everything. 3 times over. No argument. The money will be in your account tonight. Not tomorrow. I swear it. I'll lock her up. Ground her indefinitely. I cut him off. Keep the money. The engagement is off. 6 words. I hung up. Blocked his number. The office was quiet again. Owen had sent housekeeping in to clean up the blood. Sweep away the broken porcelain. Wipe down the floors. But the empty frame was still on the wall. Half the curio shelf was still bare. It looked like a mouth with its teeth ripped out. Ugly and hollow. I pulled up the office security feed on my computer and dragged the timeline back. The footage showed the hallway outside my office. Leo and Vivian stood by the door. Leo had his arm slung around her waist, his fingers tracing slow circles on her hip. He leaned in to whisper something in her ear. She laughed, turned, and kissed him on the cheek. Then she pulled out a key, unlocked my office door, and the 2 of them walked inside. I switched to the interior camera. Leo let out an exaggerated whoop the second he stepped inside. He wandered around the room, running his fingers over my desk, my chair, my bookshelves. Then he turned and wrapped both arms around Vivian, burying his face in her neck. Vivian. He purred, his voice soft and clingy. I love this office so much. The view is perfect. It's so fancy. Way better than those sad little cubicles downstairs. Vivian laughed and patted his back. If you like it, it's yours. But Leo pulled back, pouting. This is Mr. Thorne's office. What if he gets mad when he comes back? Vivian pinched his cheek, smirking. Please. Ethan Thorne. He's just a lapdog my family keeps on a leash. What's mine is mine. And I can give it to whoever I want. What's he gonna do? Complain? Leo's eyes lit up. Really? You're that powerful? Obviously. Vivian tossed her hair. Smug. If he so much as opens his mouth about it, I'll have my father ruin him. He'll be on his knees begging for forgiveness before the week's out. You're the best. Leo mumbled, nuzzling back into her chest, his hands wandering up and down her back. They sat down on the couch. Leo climbed into her lap, wrapping his arms around her neck. Hey, what about all this stuff? He nodded at the painting on the wall, the porcelain on the shelves. It's all ugly. Doesn't fit the vibe of the office at all. Vivian looked at him with fond, indulgent eyes. What do you want to do with it? Smash it, Leo said. Like it was nothing. It's all cheap garbage anyway. I'll buy you way nicer stuff someday. The most expensive stuff there is. Sure. Vivian laughed. Whatever makes you happy. Leo jumped off her lap and marched over to the wall. He grabbed the frame of the 17th century landscape painting and ripped it clean off the wall. Reariup. The canvas tore down the middle. He threw the ruined painting on the floor and stomped on it twice. Ugly as hell. Then he walked over to the curio shelf. He picked up my stoneware teapot, turned it over in his hand, and dropped it. Shatter. It hit the floor and broke into pieces. Haha. Leo cackled. Listen to that. Nice and crisp. He picked up the marble paperweight, smashed it, grabbed the pen holder, threw it, picked up a small porcelain vase, hurled it across the room. He laughed the whole time, yelling about garbage and ugly junk. Vivian just sat on the couch, watching him smile. She looked amused, fond, like she was watching a naughty but cute puppy. The footage kept rolling. When Leo got tired of breaking things, he walked back to the couch and threw himself into Vivian's arms. They kissed, leaning back into the cushions, Leo climbing on top of her. I hit pause. The office was dead silent. Only the low hum of the computer fan filled the room. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the frozen frame for a long time. Then I dragged the timeline forward. I watched the next clip. And the next. And the any after that. Different timestamps. Different camera angles. Same two people. Same casual intimacy. Same careless indulgence. Same quiet insults. The last clip was from the previous afternoon. Leo was alone in my office. He was sitting in my chair, feet propped on the desk, flipping through a stack of papers. My preliminary merger proposal. He flipped through it lazily, humming off key, rocking back and forth in my chair like he owned the place, like the office, the position. The whole company was already his. The clip ended. The screen went dark. I sat in the dim light. My cigarette burned down to the filter, hot ash singeing my fingertips. I didn't move. The faint sting burned on my skin. Then I laughed. A quiet, cold, hollow sound that echoed off the empty walls. I picked up the internal phone on my desk and dialed a number. 3 rings. It picked up. Boss. Marcus Cole's voice was steady, sharp. No nonsense. Bring Leo Bennett to Hillside Manor. I said. Clean. No witnesses. Now. There was a beat of silence on the other end. Understood. How far do you want us to take it? I thought for a second. Leave him able to talk. Yes, sir. The line went dead. I set the phone back down. My eyes drifted back to the computer screen. Still frozen on the last frame, Leo leaning back in my chair, grinning like he'd won. I moved the cursor over the video file. Right-click. Delete. Confirm. The file vanished. I emptied the recycle bin. I shut down the computer. The screen went completely black. All that was left was the glow of the city lights seeping through the windows. Hillside Manor. When the iron basement door creaked open, the stench of mildew and old blood hit me in the face. The lights were harsh and white, glinting off the cold concrete floor. Leo was kneeling in the middle of the room, his hands tied tight behind his back, rope digging into his wrists. His face was a mess of purple and blue bruises. His lip was split. Crusted blood caked on his chin. His eyes swollen almost shut. He heard the door open and flinched hard, lifting his head. When he saw me, his pupils shrank to pinpricks, like he was looking at a ghost. Thorne, his voice was raw, cracking, thick with tears. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out, and he stumbled back down to his knees. Marcus stood by the door, holding a polished metal baseball bat. Silver. Cold. Glinting under the lights. He handed it to me. I hefted it in my hand. Heavy. Solid. Leo stared at the bat, his breathing coming in fast. Ragged gasps. Mr. Thorne. I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. He crawled forward on his knees, dragging himself across the concrete, leaving a faint trail behind him. She made me do it. Vivian came on to me. She said you didn't care, that you were a pushover. I was stupid. Please, Mr. Thorne, spare me, I'll do anything. He crawled right to my feet, looking up at me, snot and tears running down his face. I'll grovel on my knees. I'll pay you back. I'll work for you for free. Just please don't kill me. I stared down at him for 3 long seconds. Then I lifted my boot and kicked him square in the chest. Thud. He flew backward, slamming into the concrete wall. He curled up on the floor, coughing hard, flecks of blood spraying from his mouth. I walked over to him, stood over his crumpled body, and lifted the bat. His eyes went wide. No, Mr. Thorne. Please. I didn't wait. I swung. Crack. The bat connected hard with the thick muscle of his outer thigh. A dull, heavy thud. Leo's scream peaked instantly, then cut off like someone had grabbed him by the throat. His face turned deep purple, veins bulging in his neck. That was for touching what's mine. He gasped and sputtered, unable to get a word out. I lifted the bat again. Crack. Second hit. Right on his other thigh. A faint. Sharp snap of bone. His back arched off the floor. Then he slammed back down. Tears streaming from his swollen eyes. That was for running your mouth. He couldn't scream anymore. Only ragged, wheezing gasps. Like air through a broken bellows. I kept going. Third hit. Across his forearm. Crack. Fourth. Into his ribs. Crack. Fifth. Square on his shoulder. Every hit was full force. Every blow landed on thick, fleshy parts of his body. Nothing that would kill him right away. But it hurt. It hurt like hell. The sound of breaking bone. Dull thuds. And muffled sobs mixed together in the basement. A sick, twisted symphony. Leo went from screaming, to begging, to whimpering. His body twitched and jolted with every hit. Like a fish left out to suffocate on dry land. I stopped. The tip of the bat was dripping with blood. Droplets fell to the concrete. One by one. Leo lay limp on the floor. Motionless. His eyes were half open. Glazed. Staring at the ceiling. Only the faint, shallow rise and fall of his chest said he was still alive. Barely. I tossed the bat back to Marcus. I pulled a cheap, disposable burner phone out of my pocket. Turned it on. And opened the camera. I took photos of Leo on the floor. Close-ups of his wounds. Full body shots. Close-ups of his face. A dozen photos total. Then I opened the contacts. Typed in Vivian's number. And sent every single one. The phone rang instantly. Caller ID, Vivian Drake. I didn't answer. I smashed the phone under my boot and dropped the broken pieces in the trash. I turned and walked toward the door. Stick to the plan. Move him to the spot. Yes. Sir. Keep an eye on him. Don't let him die before we're done. Understood. I paused in the doorway. Glancing back over my shoulder. Leo still lay there like a pile of rags. Patch him up just enough. Don't let him die on the drive over. Yes. Sir. I pushed open the door and walked up the stairs. The basement door clicked shut behind me. Sealing in the blood. The mess. The quiet brutality of what had just happened. I got in my car and drove down the hill. Back toward the city. The next morning. 10 a.m. I was going through paperwork in my office when Owen knocked and stepped inside. Mr. Thorne. Miss Drake is here. She's in the lobby causing a scene. Demanding to see you. Security is holding her back. But she's very upset. I set down my pen. Send her up. Yes. Sir. 5 minutes later. The office door slammed open so hard it bounced off the wall. Vivian stormed inside. No makeup. Hair a tangled mess. Eyes red and puffy. Dark circles under her eyes like she hadn't slept all night. She was still wearing the same suit from the day before. Wrinkled and stained. When she saw me, her eyes went wide. Bloodshot and blazing. Ethan Thorne. She screamed the name. Sprinting to my desk and slamming both palms down on the surface. Leaning forward like a wild animal about to lunge. What did you do to Leo? Her voice was hoarse. Raw. Broken. Those photos. Did you send them to me? She shoved her phone in my face. The screen was lit up with the photos I'd sent the night before. Leo crumpled on the floor. Covered in blood and bruises. Limp like a broken doll. The photos were crystal clear. It was you. Wasn't it? She stared at me. Unhinged. Where is he? What did you do to him? I leaned back in my chair and looked at her. Then I smiled. What photos? I said. Calm as anything. Miss Drake. I have no idea what you're talking about. Vivian froze. You're playing dumb. These photos. You sent them to me last night. Don't lie to me. I shook my head. Miss Drake. I think you're confused. We have no relationship anymore. If your assistant is missing, you should call the police. Don't come into my office making accusations. Her face shifted from rage to shock. Then to something even more feral. Ethan Thorne. You sick bastard. What is wrong with you? She reared back and tried to slap me again. I didn't stand up. I just lifted my hand and caught her wrist easily. Squeezing tight. She thrashed. But she couldn't break free. Let go of me. You monster. Give me back Leo. I stared at her. My gaze going cold. Miss Drake. This is my company. My office. You barged in here. insulted me, and tried to assault me. I'm going to have you removed. I let go of her wrist and nodded toward the door. Owen. Owen stepped in immediately with 2 security guards. Throw her out. Yes. Sir. The guards grabbed Vivian by both arms, hauling her back. She kicked and screamed. Don't touch me. How dare you? Ethan Thorne. You'll rot in hell. Give me back Leo. Give him back. Her screams were sharp, ragged, almost inhuman. The guards dragged her toward the door. She bit and kicked and fought, but it was useless. Both guards were ex-military, their grips like iron. One of her high heels slipped off and clattered to the floor. Her hair came more undone, her clothes more torn. She looked completely unhinged. Right as they dragged her past the doorway, I stood up and walked over. The guard stopped. Vivian looked up at me, her eyes full of venom and hatred. I leaned down, close to her ear, so quiet only she could hear. Abandoned metro tower. West side. Top floor. If you want to see him, come alone. I leaned back and looked at her. Her pupils shrank to pinpricks, so wide with shock for a second she forgot to scream. Her mouth opened and closed. No sound coming out. Her gaze shifted from hatred to shock, to terror, then to a flicker of desperate, frantic hope. You. Take her away. I cut her off, turning my back. The guards didn't hesitate. They dragged her out of the office. The door clicked shut. The screaming and cursing faded down the hallway, then went quiet entirely. The office was still again. I walked back to my desk and sat down. I turned on my computer. The screen lit up, pulling up a live security feed automatically. The screen was split in 2. The left side was the live feed from the top floor of the abandoned metro tower. The building had been empty for years. The top floor was wide open. Cracked concrete floors, rusted railings lining the edge. In the middle of the frame stood a rusted metal beam. A thick hemp rope was tied to the top of it, the other end hanging down over the edge of the building. Out of frame. The right side was a second camera angle, shot from the roof of a shorter building across the street with a telephoto lens. It showed Leo clearly, his hands bound, his mouth gagged, dangling high above the street. The rope was tied tight around his wrists, anchored to the metal beam on the roof. He was covered in cuts and bruises, his clothes torn, dried blood crusted on his face. He swayed slightly in the wind, like a pendulum. His eyes were closed. It was impossible to tell if he was unconscious or dead. I leaned back in my chair, lit a cigarette, and watched the screen. 30 minutes later, on the left feed, the metal rooftop door slammed open. Vivian came bursting through. She was gasping for breath, her hair wind-tousled, sweat running down her face. She looked around wildly, panicked. Then she saw the rope. She saw the hemp line hanging over the edge. She froze for half a second, then ran straight for the railing, leaning over the edge to look down. A second later, ah! A scream so raw it tore through the audio feed. She'd seen Leo. She spun around, staring at the rope, at the metal beam. Then she scrambled over on her hands and knees, grabbing for the rope to pull him up. The second her fingers wrapped around the hemp line, crackle! A burst of bright blue sparks exploded from the knot at the top of the beam. Vivian yelped and yanking her hand back. Too late. The sparks burned straight through the rope. Snap! The line severed clean. The loose end of the rope, and Leo with it, vanished over the edge of the building in an instant. Free fall. Vivian froze completely. She stared at the frayed end of the rope, at the faint sparks still fizzing on the metal beam, like she'd turned to stone. 2 seconds later, she threw herself at the railing, leaning way over the edge to look down. Then her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor, her mouth hanging open in a silent scream. Her whole face crumpled, completely broken. On the right feed, Leo's body plummeted fast, like a sack of garbage, until it vanished below the bottom of the frame. Right as he fell, 3 quick flashes of light blinked from the rooftop across the street, like a camera shutter. 3 shots in a row. Then everything went still. I put out my cigarette. I picked up a second burner phone on my desk and dialed. Yeah. Marcus's voice. Got all the photos. Got M. He said. 3 shots. Perfect angle. You can clearly see her hand on the rope. The line snapping. Him going over. Clean up the photos. Send them anonymously to the police. And the major news outlets. Got it. Wipe the site completely. Already on it. I hung up. I set the phone down and looked back at the screen. On the left feed. Vivian was still collapsed on the floor. Motionless. Like she was already dead. 3 minutes later. Sirens wailed from the street below. Getting louder and louder. 4 or 5 police cars screeched to a stop at the base of the metro tower. Officers poured out. Rushing into the building. A minute later. The rooftop door burst open. 7 or 8 officers stormed onto the roof. They saw Vivian on the floor and surrounded her immediately. One knelt down. Speaking to her. She didn't react. Her eyes blank. Hollow. The officer stood up. Signaling the rest of the team to process the scene. They checked the metal beam. The frayed end of the rope. The railing. Then one officer pulled out his phone. Like he'd just received a message. He looked at the screen. Then looked over at Vivian. His face hardened. He walked over to her. Holding up his badge. Vivian Drake. Vivian lifted her head slowly. Her gaze unfocused. We're with the Ravenswood Police Department. He held up his phone. Showing her the photos. 3 clear shots of her hand on the rope. The line snapping. Leo falling. We've received evidence linking you to a deliberate homicide. You're under arrest. You will come with us to the station for questioning. Vivian stared at the photos for a long time. Then she burst out laughing. Loud. Hysterical. Completely unhinged. Ha 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 ha. Ethan Thorne. You win. The officers didn't wait. They stepped forward and cuffed her. Click. The sound of the metal locks clicking shut was sharp and final. 2 officers hauled her to her feet. 1 on each side. She didn't fight back. She moved like a lifeless doll. Letting them drag her toward the door. Right before they walked out. She glanced back over her shoulder. Staring at the broken rope. At the empty sky beyond the railing. Then the door shut behind them. They vanished from the feed. I closed the security program. The screen went dark. The office was quiet. The sun was bright outside. Streaming through the windows and casting sharp golden patches across the floor. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Fragments of memory flashed through my head. Fast as a film reel. The first time Vivian came to the office to see me. In a white dress. Smiling shyly. Harrison Drake clapping me on the shoulder at our engagement dinner. Saying, Ethan. I'm entrusting Vivian to you. Her standing in my office. Wrapped around Leo. Saying Ethan's just a lapdog my family keeps on a leash. Her crumpled on the floor. Crying. Saying I'm sorry. The look on her face in the security feed. The second the sparks exploded from the rope. That hollow. Broken laugh when they put the cuffs on her. It all blurred together. Fast forward to black. I opened my eyes. I picked up my phone and sent Marcus a single text. Wrap it up. A reply came back instantly. Yes. Sir. I set the phone down. Stood up. And walked over to the window. Down on the street. Traffic moved like always. People hurried along the sidewalks. The sun was bright. Blinding almost. The world kept turning. Exactly as it always had. No one knew that just minutes ago. In a forgotten corner of the city. A carefully planned sentence had been carried out. 3 days later. Harrison Drake showed up at my house. He rang the doorbell. Standing alone at the front gate. No assistant. No driver. Just him. I had the butler let him in. When he walked into the living room. I almost didn't recognize him. In 3 days. He'd aged 10 years. His hair was completely white. Thin and straw-like. His eyes were sunken deep in his head. Ringed with dark circles. Bloodshot all over. His suit was wrinkled. His tie askew. Dust caked on his dress shoes. He carried an old, scuffed black leather briefcase in one hand. He stopped when he saw me. His lips moved. But no sound came out. Then he bowed. A deep, solemn bow. He held it for 3 long seconds. When he stood back up. His eyes were wet. Mr. Thorne. He said. His voice rough. Gravelly. Like he'd been screaming for days. I've come to apologize. He stepped forward. Set the briefcase on the coffee table. And flipped it open. Inside was a checkbook. And a stack of stock transfer agreements. He picked up the checkbook. His hand was shaking. He flipped it open, signed a check with a trembling hand, tore it out, and held it out to me with both hands. Mr. Thorne, this is a token of my apology. $50 million. To compensate you for the property Vivian destroyed. I didn't take it. I just looked at him. His hand hung in the air. Awkward. Stiff. He pulled out the stock agreements next. And 5% equity in Drake Holdings. I know it's not much to you, but it's everything I can spare right now. He set the check and the papers on the coffee table and pushed them toward me. Then he stepped back and bowed again. Even deeper this time. Mr. Thorne, his voice cracked. I failed as a father. Vivian. She got what she deserved. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I'm not asking you to go easy on her. I'm begging you. Spare the rest of the family. Drake Holdings employs hundreds of people. It can't collapse. He looked up at me. Tears running down the deep lines in his face. Dripping onto the carpet. Mr. Thorne. I'll get on my knees and beg. He started to lower himself to the floor. That won't be necessary, I said, my voice calm. He froze. Half-crouched. Staring up at me. I nodded at the couch. Sit. He hesitated. Then slowly sat down on the very edge of the cushion. Back straight as a rod. Like he was on trial. I picked up the check and glanced at it. 50 million. A big number. I flipped through the stock agreements next. The terms were clear. No fine print. No traps. Chairman Drake. I said. You're a smart man. He tensed up immediately. Panic flashing in his eyes. I paused for a beat. Then continued. This ends here. Vivian's case will be decided by the courts. As for Drake Holdings, conduct yourselves accordingly. He blinked. Stunned for 2 full seconds. Then jumped to his feet and bowed again. Over and over. Thank you. Mr. Thorne. Thank you. I swear. The Drake family will never bother you again. We'll stay out of your way completely. Thank you. He rambled. Tears streaming down his face. Relieved this time. I won't take up any more of your time. He wiped his eyes. Grabbed his empty briefcase. Bowed one last time. And turned to leave. Walking fast. Almost stumbling over his own feet. Like he was running for his life. The butler saw him out. The front door clicked shut. The living room went quiet. That afternoon. Marcus came by. Boss. I gestured to the couch. Sit. He sat down. Spine straight as ever. Everything's cleaned up. Leo's body was cremated at Westside Crematorium. Ashes scattered in the river. The Metro Tower rooftop is spotless. The spark device is gone. We replaced the rope with a fresh frayed line. No way to tell it was tampered with. The police have a solid case. Witness statements. Time-stamped photos. Forensics on the rope. All of it points to Vivian committing premeditated murder. She can't fight it. I nodded. And the press. All outlets got the same statement. Socialite kills lover in jealous rage. No mention of you. No connection to Thorne Industries. Good. One more thing. Marcus paused. After Harrison left here, he transferred another 3% of his remaining Drake Holdings stock to a handful of small shareholders. Cashed out. And moved the money to an offshore account. Looks like he's planning to skip town. Let him. I smiled faintly. A cornered dog will jump a fence. A cornered man will save his own skin. It's only human. Marcus said nothing more. The study went quiet for a few seconds. Anything else? I asked. No. Sir. Dismissed. Yes. Sir. He stood up and walked out of the villa. 1 week later. My new office on the top floor of Thorne Tower. Bigger than the old one. Better view. Floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over all of Ravenswood. I stood by the glass. Looking down at the city below. Cars streamed through the streets like ants. Skyscrapers stretched toward the sky. The city looked orderly in the daylight. Like a perfectly calibrated machine. Only I knew what was hidden under the surface. All the rot. All the deals. All the schemes. All the bodies buried out of sight. Owen knocked and stepped inside. Mr. Thorne. All joint projects with Drake Holdings have been terminated and wound down. Losses. Virtually none. We pulled out early per the contract terms. The Drake family owes us a substantial penalty fee. Good. Also, here's the list of new potential partners. And a few other families have reached out about corporate arranged engagements. Would you like me to? No. I cut him off. Turn all of them down. All of them. No more engagements. Yes. Sir. Owen stood there for a few seconds. Waiting. When I said nothing else, he bowed slightly and backed out of the office. The door clicked shut. The office went completely silent. I spoke quietly. My voice so soft it barely echoed in the huge, empty room. Love. Marriage. A faint, cold, bitter smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Nothing but fragile decoration. Pretty to look at. But they shatter the second you touch them. Only absolute power. Only absolute control. That is the only truth in this world that never breaks.